Chapter 881, Wei Wu Army. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu stayed in the house of the aristocrat, Old Man Li, for 3 days. Old Man Li only greeted them on the 3rd day. However, Lu Shu already had a new opinion and decided to enter the Qingxai army. Based on what Zhang Weiyu said, it was possible for a rank 6 practitioner to enter the army. However, he could not say that he was an ordinary villager as he would be subjected to checks if he did. He was advised to not join the Qingxai army as the pressure on nomination for the Sword Hut was the highest in the Qingxai army, as many elites were born in that army. Lu Shu asked, "Then how should I settle the issue with my household register? Which army should I choose?" Zhang Weiyu said after giving it some thought, there are 2 ways for a slave to be freed from the register of a slave. 1. Revolt and suffer immense pain to remove the mark on your body. 2nd, when the slave owner dies, the slave's skill level would decrease and he will be able to break free from the restraint of the mark without any pain. By right, the slave owner's relatives would take on the possession of the mark, but if the slave owner did not have any relatives, the mark will not be passed on. Some slaves were freed after their slave owners died. At the same time, they were unwilling to remain as a slave as they had obtained certain skills. We usually call them roamers. When you join the army, you can say that you were once the slave of the Lu family. There were originally 4 slave owners in this town, but the family died in the battle with the Black Feather Army 10 years ago. Therefore, many slaves were freed and left. Zhang Weiyu gave advice to Lu Shu to repay his favor. "So which army should I choose?" asked Lu Shu again. The Wei Wu army are situated outside the Yunnan city that is to the north of Nanjing city. This troop is not the main force of the borders and therefore is better than the Qingxai army in terms of safety and security, said Zhang Weiyu. If the Black Feather army comes, they would enter the battlefield after the Qingxai army. Oh. Lu Shu figured it out. It basically meant that they were the backup troop and it was good because they did not have to fight. The Wei Wu army likes to recruit roamers. Initially, they thought that the capable slaves would become the mainstay of the army, but they did not know the problems with these roamers that created chaos within the army. They even gambled in the army camp, Zhang Weiyu said while laughing, after finding out about this. Many of the important positions in the army were taken by the roamers. They discriminated against the ordinary villagers. After that, the roamers were smart enough to accept bribery and deduct pay of the other soldiers, while the commander of the Wei Wu army, who became the biggest beneficiary, turned a blind eye to this situation. Now, even the position of the commander was taken up by a roamer and the entire army was about to be destroyed. Lu Shu was stunned. The Lord of Heaven did not care. The Lord of Heaven has no time to care as he has 11 armies. He is only willing to appreciate the rules of heaven and earth and therefore only needed the Wei Wu army to win the battle. Moreover, the Wei Wu army had indeed won a few battles despite there being something fishy. You will know the rough situation once you are there. All right, then I will go to the Wei Wu army. Lu Shu nodded. How many vacancies are there in each army? Every troop has 1 vacancy. This is the main point of my sentence. Nobody in the Wei Wu army wants to participate in the selection for the Sword Hut, smiled Zhang Weiyu. Why though? Didn't you say that they are sly and greedy people? Won't they become rich and prosperous after they enter the Sword Hut? Why are they so short-sighted? Lu Shu was curious. You do not know this, but these bunch of people are aware of their own capabilities. Zhang Weiyu smiled. They know that they will not get selected into the Sword Hut even if they win as, after all, how would a group of roamers like them match up to the group of elites from the dozens of armies? Instead of being embarrassed after they lost to the other armies, they would rather stay put. These dozens of elites came from the Lords of Heaven of all regions and were enemies before they entered the Sword Hut. Lu Shu did not realize that the Wei Wu army were a group of elites. Does that mean that the Wei Wu army has not sent anyone into the Sword Hut for a couple of years? No. Even if they do not go by themselves, they could sell the spot to the noble disciples. Everything involves money. Zhang Weiyu laughed. So your main concern is to earn money. Based on my understanding, the spot is not expensive as the selection was highly regarded by many individuals and the noble disciples would not give it a shot randomly and end up being embarrassed if they failed. However, how would the elites be willing to be embarrassed? That was why they would kill the opponents of the other parties to regain their pride. Even a gifted individual under the North Lord of Heaven was unsuccessful in his application and ended up killing 9 other talented individuals with the 9 other individuals. Eventually, they killed 9 other powerful individuals and were heavily rewarded when they returned. Lu Shu figured it out. That implied that even if one was not selected, one would not embarrass their family as long as one managed to kill other people. However, regarding earning money, notes were used, so he had to think of a way to earn some money to purchase the vacancy. It was not a big problem, but he had to give it some thought. Why were people not chosen despite killing 9 people? Lu Shu asked curiously. The owner of the sword hut is pretty interesting. Martial arts competition is only the first round and there are many other rounds after that. It is not sufficient to be only good in martial arts, but I don't know what else there is after that round. Zhang Weiyu shook his head and said, the disciples of the sword hut have never revealed what were the rounds after this. Those who failed were also told to keep it a secret and nobody dared to go against the sword hut. All right. Lu Shu nodded. Do you want to go with us? We can promise that you will lead a more carefree life and do not need to sell yourselves as a slave. Lu Shu was serious about the invitation. With someone who knew about almost everything beside him, he and Lu Xiaoyu would not waste time on their way. Moreover, with Lu Xiaoyu's space ring, he would not starve to death even if he did not earn enough money. No, Zhang Weiyu smiled. I am happy here. Is it really worth it? Asked Lu Shu suddenly. Zhang Weiyu never revealed what he wanted to do there and Lu Shu never asked. However, by asking that question, he wanted to tell Zhang Weiyu that he knew that Zhang Weiyu was responsible for some sort of mission. Zhang Weiyu smiled. From a long time ago, I only have one thought in mind that kept me going. I wanted to wait for the day when I can hand over my life without holding back. I will be satisfied with that. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu left and Zhang Weiyu was the only one who headed to the north. He turned to look at the backs of Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu and felt that it was a pleasant scene. Chapter 882, Attracting Others' Attention, Lu Xiaoshu. The South Lord of Heaven controlled a huge area, but Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu headed to Yunnan City instead of Nanging City. Initially, Lu Xiaoyu wanted to tour Nanging City but was outrightly rejected by Lu Shu. He was worried that he would bump into Lu Yizhao in Nanging City. Although Lu Shu had good features, he was not considered handsome on Earth. For some reason, however, he seemed to have been lucky in love in this world. No, it was not the luck in love, it was the disaster of love. 3 days had passed when both of them arrived at Yunnan City. By right, with Lu Xiaoyu around, they should be traveling at a fast speed, but Lu Shu overestimated Lu Xiaoyu's sense of direction. After going underground, Lu Xiaoyu told Lu Shu that she was a little bad in terms of her sense of direction. Lu Shu was initially confused as it was his first time hearing Lu Xiaoyu admit that she was bad at something. However, after going in the wrong direction for 8 times, Lu Shu sighed as he stood outside the gates of Yunnan City. What do you mean by you have a bad sense of direction? You don't even have a sense of direction. From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 199. Lu Shu recalled how, as a child, Lu Xiaoyu lost her way after sneakily escaping from the orphanage. She found a telephone stand and called Lu Shu, and when Lu Shu asked her where she was, she said she was under a cloud. After that, Lu Xiaoyu remembered the way. Perhaps it was because of Lu Shu's presence that she was able to remember the way. Yunnan City was bustling with activities. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu felt as though they had entered a movie. There was a rest station at the side of the city gate and horses were resting there, looking as though they were doing business. Lu Shu counted the notes in his pocket. The notes he got from selling the gifts he received from the Yu family was only sufficient to last him for a couple of days. We have to find a way to make money, sighed Lu Shu. If I enter the Wei Wu army, you have to have enough capital to survive in Yunnan City. We have to find a way to start a business. All would be good if he could take out the Seal of Lands, as anything from the Seal of Lands could be sold. However, not only was he unable to use the Seal of Lands, but he was also unable to take it out. Lu Shu took a glance at Lu Xiaoyu. Everything would be perfect if the spirit you caught could be a real person. Then, the spirit could be used as a curtain to protect you as you attacked. I asked Zhang Weiyu, and he said that the people in this world had a taboo on capturing spirits, as they believed that one's spirit would not disappear but would be reborn themselves. Although Lu Xiaoyu was tall, she was young and looked too naive. She did not need to be protected as, after all, Yunnan City was a small city and the leader of the city was only rank 2. With Lu Xiaoyu's capability, she was able to defend against those rank 1 leaders of big cities. However, the problem was that some people thought Lu Xiaoyu was easily bullied as she was young. If there could be a master acting around her, all these problems could be resolved. Lu Xiaoyu took a look at him, walked to a secluded area and called the bishop and Johnson out. Then, Lu Shu saw a 7-colored bead fly out from Johnson's body and enter into the body of the bishop as the black color on the bishop faded slowly, turning into a real figure. The 7-colored bead was obtained when Lu Shu accidentally killed the C-class Japanese spy in the remains of Beimeng. After realizing that it had minimal effects in terms of raising one's power upon feeding it to Johnson, he forgot about it. Lu Shu was stunned for a moment. So the 7-colored bead can really cause one to turn into a real figure instead of a black one? Then can you stop him from laughing stupidly? Lu Xiaoyu rolled her eyes. Shouldn't I be asking you to stop him from laughing stupidly? From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 399. At this moment, the bishop's black face was no longer black, he looked as though he had Parkinson's disease, or the commonly known dementia. Perhaps it was because of the foolish laughter, although Lu Xiaoyu knew that the Ambolite soul pearl could turn one into one's real form. She had never used it before. With this foolish laughter, what kind of deterrent effect could he bring about? Perhaps one could make the clothes, but the smile was unable to be changed, it was extremely high in terms of priority. Lu Shu thought about it for a long time. Having it is better than not having it, just cover half of his face. Do you have something like a scarf? I think he will look less foreign when his face is covered. Do not cover his eyes, but cover his mouth. Therefore, an elderly masked with a pink scarf with rabbit prints appeared behind Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Shu. It was really difficult to determine how threatening he was. Lu Shu was thinking about a question. He obtained the soul pearl after killing the soul. After that, he did not manage to get any more soul pearls despite killing many other people. He was unaware that he was able to boost his powers using the soul pearl by snatching the souls of people whom Lu Xiaoyu had killed. Although it had a low efficiency, Johnson had reached the peak of rank 2. However, there was a limit to the soul pearl as one was unable to continue upgrading oneself after reaching rank 2. Lu Xiaoyu thought about it before. Rank 1 was the process of merging the laws and the heaven and earth. Everyone's laws were different and a pure soul was unable to offend this law. However, what would happen if another person of rank 1 was killed? Would the souls absorbed by Johnson and Anthony merge with the laws and allow them to rise to rank 1? It was possible for them to kill their rank 1 opponents. However, Lu Xiaoyu was already used to the earth-type and materialization-type techniques. She hoped that Johnson and Anthony were able to continue to upgrade their powers through absorbing the energy in the soul pearls. However, at this moment, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly discovered that there was a lady looking at Lu Shu from the side of the road. Lu Xiaoyu went deep into thought, what on earth is happening in this world? At the next instance, a wooden stick was dropped directly in front of Lu Shu through a window of a 2-story building. However, before the wooden stick fell onto the ground, Lu Xiaoyu caught it and threw it back. From Lu Genoa's distress points, plus 199. Initially, Lu Xiaoyu was wondering how to stop Lu Shu from entering the army camp. After all, God knew how often could they meet if he entered the army camp? Nobody would go back home every day, right? Both of them had no family members in this world. Of course, Lu Xiaoyu hoped to see Lu Shu every day. However, at this moment, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly felt that it was better for Lu Shu to go to the army camp where it was dominated by men. Chapter 883, Soapmaker Lu Xiaoshu. Lu Xiaoyu felt that Yunnan City was really unsafe. They had only been walking for less than a kilometer and there were already over 10 girls eyeing up Lu Shu. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly said, "I will accompany you for a couple of days more in Yunnan City. Let us start a proper business before I report to the Weiwu army. I can take this chance to explore the city and familiarize myself with this world, so just go to the Weiwu army now," said Lu Xiaoyu calmly. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. From Lu Shu's distress, plus 666. However, Lu Shu could not go to the Weiwu army now. He had to settle the things in the city first. Lu Shu suddenly asked, "I have observed carefully and noted that Zhang Weiyu washed his clothes with a type of plant leaf. I asked them if they had any other ways to wash their clothes and he said that everyone uses the leaf. Therefore, I don't think there is soap in this world. The production of soap is actually pretty easy." Lu Shu had stumbled upon the making of soap in the past. Apparently, someone accidentally dropped oil into an extinguished charcoal and brought them out with his hands, as he was afraid that the mixture would cause a fire. Then, he realized that his hands were extremely clean after he washed them. Sometimes, coincidences were unnecessary because even without this coincidence, scientists would have discovered how to make soap while researching on chemical elements. However, it was a different story in this world. Firstly, there were very few people who studied chemistry. Secondly, such coincidences had not happened yet. Lu Shu was happy over his idea, but Lu Xiaoyu was stunned. "You are trying to make soap out of nothing?" Lu Shu said. "What do you mean?" Initially, Lu Xiaoyu thought that it was safer for Lu Shu if he had gone to the Weiwu army. However, it looked as though it was not safe for him to go to the Weiwu army too. Lu Shu felt that Lu Xiaoyu was acting weirdly. Wouldn't he make money from making soap? It was not practical to make use of advanced technology in this world to produce unimaginable objects. The natives would probably not be able to accept it. Therefore, it was more profitable and reasonable for them to produce household products as the cost price was low too. Lu Shu analyzed it carefully. Look, it was extremely easy for the people in our world to make soap. They simply added hot alkali onto pork lard. I don't think there are any alkali in this world, but we have two choices. One is to burn the grass and tree branches and use its ashes, one is to look for alkali. The former is a stupid method as it would be slow to make alkali from the ashes of grass and tree branches. It would be good if we can find an alkali mine. I don't think it will be difficult for Anthony to find it. After finding the alkali mine, we can just combine it with lime to make sodium hydroxide. There is lime in this world, I saw them using it to build houses. It was normal for there to be a lack of alkali in this world as it was discovered rather late on Earth as well. However, that did not pose a problem to Lu Shu as he could always fall back on making use of ashes from grass and tree branches. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Shu in shock. She realized that Lu Shu was being serious. He really wanted to make soap. Lu Shu said proudly, "If this world ever achieves technological advances, perhaps I would be crowned the creator of soap." "I don't think this is worth being proud of," Lu Xiaoyu commented. "You don't understand, science is an art form. The more you research, the more you will discover about the world's wonders," sighed Lu Shu. However, this world took another path and therefore would not be bothered about foundational scientific concepts. There was no right or wrong. It was two different paths. Humans made technological inventions in order to make use of technology. On the other hand, this world embarked on another path as they were already sufficiently powerful. Instead of technology, they made use of witchcraft. Therefore, it was no wonder that they advanced very slowly in terms of technology. It was an outcome due to one's power. Lu Shu thought about it. Perhaps there were living creatures who could delve deep into technology in other worlds, but he knew that nobody in this world would care about it. So you are saying that none of the practitioners would have a spell for washing clothes? Lu Xiaoyu was curious. If there is, then won't we be wasting our efforts? Lu Shu smiled. We can just sell the soap to ordinary villagers. They make up 80% of the people here. This is our market, we don't need to sell it to the practitioners. That's right. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly felt sad. Lu Shu was about to make soap. And he claimed that he was going to be the inventor of soap. How shameless. Lu Shu suddenly became excited upon thinking of this idea. I don't think we have enough cash for 2 nights' stay at the hostels. Do you have anything we can sell for money? Lu Xiaoyu stared cautiously at Lu Shu. What do you want me to sell? I have gold chains, but people here will not want it. That gave them a headache. Gold became something useless in this world. Lu Shu thought about it. Anything else? And a belt which I bought for you. However, the people here wear pants that are different from our world. They don't need belts and don't recognize the big brands, Lu Xiaoyu said. At this moment, a candied fruit seller passed by. The sticks of red candied fruits were slotted in the stick carrier by the seller and a group of kids were following him. Lu Shu smiled at Lu Xiaoyu and asked, do you want some? No, Lu Xiaoyu shook her head. We need to save some money. Lu Shu looked at Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu was still requesting for candied fruits the night before her spirit qi recovered. After 2 years' time, Lu Xiaoyu had grown up. Time would change one's character unknowingly. Be it Lu Xiaoyu or Lu Shu himself, he hoped that his looks would change. Lu Shu stopped the seller. 1 stick please. He bought it and stuffed it into Lu Xiaoyu's hand. Just leave 1 for me. Oh, Lu Xiaoyu responded and lowered her head, seemingly deep in thought. It felt as if they were in the same world. Or perhaps, even if the world had changed, Lu Shu and herself did not change. They were also very poor back then, but she knew that Lu Shu had a way. Initially, Lu Xiaoyu did not like this world and did not want to accept it. However, this feeling vanished. That was because Lu Shu was there. Everywhere was the same with Lu Shu around. Chapter 884, New King's Studies. Yunnan City was surrounded by mountains. Some said that in Yunnan City, it was warm in winter and cool in summer. It was like spring all year round. But Lu Shu felt that this was a hoax. After Lu Shu entered Yunnan City, he did not immediately observe how much the businesses were more prosperous here compared to in the fields. Instead, he focused on the defense here. He casually looked around and saw soldiers from the Weiwu army lazily leaning on the wall as they chatted. There were also soldiers at the entrance. At first, Lu Shu was worried about whether they would require official documents to enter the city. But the soldiers were busy chatting. They did not even see Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu. Furthermore, Lu Shu felt that these troops were very poor. The Qingsai army he had seen in the fields were not subdued by force. Their horses were of the best quality. He could see that they took good care of their red armor. But the Weiwu army was different. Lu Shu felt that their weapons looked rusty. They were evidently not magical weapons. They might not even be as good as typical weapons. The commander of the Weiwu army was also the head of Yunnan City. A slave had become the head of a city. Lu Shu was sure that they had used other means. But could this army win battles? He did not know how they had survived the past few battles. Lu Shu suddenly had a feeling that the king of gods and the lords of heaven treated these people like sheep. They could not even be considered as ranch owners. They did not care about how the sheep they took care of would grow. There were times when Lu Shu pondered. After individuals grew too strong, would they involuntarily see these people as ants? It was said that the action of freeing captive animals was for nothing, as you did not know whether the fish or loaches you set free were good or evil. If you had set free an evil fish, then you would be blamed by the gods, right? Some argued that fish did not care whether others were good or bad, as long as they were set free. No matter whether it was fish, or loaches, or even humans, there would be no difference in their tools and food. But in the eyes of the gods, humans were the same. They were not worthy of attention. In this world, above rank 1 was the master realm. These people looked down on humans like they looked down on ants. Who cared about them? As long as they were strong enough, they would be able to defend their own rule. This was different from governing others. When people governed others, they had to think about their lives, environment, and customs. Now, it was as if the gods were governing people. No matter how much the ordinary people struggled, it would be of no use. From this point of view, Lu Shu could understand the current situation in the Wei Wu army. The South Lord of Heaven, Wen Zaifu, was too lazy to care about them. Would the gods care about ants who shamelessly sought personal gain? Although Lu Shu had never seen Ye Ting, a Shen Songjing, attack, he could imagine the threatening power that he had. A rank 1 was able to break the gate to hell in the Kunlun Mountains. The Master Realm was almost on the same level as a god, at least in the eyes of the ordinary people. This world did not use the name Shen Songjing. There were only masters. But to be honest, Lu Shu preferred the heavenly network to be this way. He could fight together with the heavenly network, sit under the walnut tree and read documents, and carry a bowl of millet gruel only to tell Shi Xuejin that the green Chinese onions were not tasty. Lu Shu felt that Nye Ting was a real person, and not a deity. He was much stronger than a few lords of heaven. Of course, he had never seen the lords of heaven for himself. He could not come up with a conclusion yet. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu walked past a noodle shop. He saw that it was very lively in the shop, as if a large group of people were discussing something. He overheard someone talking about the king of gods. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu looked at each other. Then, they walked in. A waiter welcomed them. Would you like to sit on the second floor or the first floor? First floor. Lu Shu looked at the menu that was hanging on the wall. 2 bowls of beef noodles, please. Sure. The waiter led Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu into a corner. Lu Shu glanced at the group of people. Someone had talked about the king of gods again. He said to Lu Xiaoyu, "Go and sit there first. I will listen to what they are saying." There were a few tables of guests sitting together. Among them, an old man said, "I have heard so much about the king's studies today. Your opinions have broadened my horizons." When Lu Shu heard about this, he was slightly fed up. King's studies, did the old king of gods create a new profession? Suddenly, someone said with a lofty tone, "I aspire to read all of the king of gods' poems and draw the world that the king of gods had mentioned in his poems." The people around him cheered and clapped. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Were they experts in the king's studies? They were like maniacs. But it was understandable. To a world like this where culture was lacking, the old king of gods created 99% of the cultural items here. It was normal for people to respect him. Suddenly, someone said, "Brother, do you know this poem? The white sun sets below the mountains, the yellow river flows into the ocean. If you want to see a view of 1,000 miles, climb up to the next floor." This poem is called Climbing Yellow Stork Tower. The Yellow Stork Tower has appeared many times in the king's poems. I want to know what this Yellow Stork Tower is like and where it is. Don't research it. The person sighed, "The Yellow Stork Tower is a sacred place to me." Let's look at the first line. One can see the mountains from the Yellow Stork Tower. Furthermore, the mountains are probably in the west. Lu Shu was silent for 2 seconds. He then said, Have you ever thought that a Shan Jinwan sets below the mountains might be the name of a person? The originally enthusiastic discussion suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked up and stared at Lu Shu. They then recalled the poem. From Chi Zi's Distress, plus 666. From An How's Distress, plus 666. From Chen Weihua's. This argument, someone hesitated. If the old king of gods heard this, he would beat you up. When the group of people heard this, they thought that it was an unreasonable argument and was ready to scold him. But when they looked up and saw Lu Shu, they were silenced by his looks. Even their tone was not as strong as before. Suddenly, someone said, but this could be a new perspective. Even Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Did someone really believe him? They looked at Lu Shu again. Do you have any other opinions? Lu Shu was silent for 2 seconds. Do you think that the line, where have people's faces gone to one, is criticizing people for having no shame? The experts in King's studies pondered deeply again. From Chi Zi's Distress, plus 666. From. Lu Shu did not know that he had unintentionally created a non-conventional school of thought in the King's studies. There were very few of such people, but they still existed. Footnotes. Ch 884 footnote 1. This is extracted from the first line of the poem. It means, sun. Ch 884 footnote 2. In the original poem, people's faces refer to that of girls. Chapter 885, all according to routine. The group of people started a heated discussion. They even invited Lu Shu to their discussion in the afternoon. They asked where Lu Shu lived. Lu Shu said that it was the first time he had come here and did not have a place to stay. Immediately, someone said that they had a place to stay here. They wanted to have late-night talks. Lu Shu was speechless. He decided to reject him. He still needed his own place to make soap, and did not want others to know about this secret place. The people of this world did not place much emphasis on secrets of the trade, but Lu Shu still felt that they were important. Lu Shu understood human nature very well. Back then, when he sold eggs, there were people who asked what spices he had used. When they did their research and sold eggs beside him, Uncle Li had chased them away. Some people were abominable. Once others discovered that you were making money, they would use the same method to make money. They would even think of ways to disrupt your business. They did not even think about creating a new product. Thus, Lu Shu was worried. What if someone discovered his method to produce soap? Lu Shu did not want to beat people up just after he had come here. There was a benefit in being a practitioner. They had to be strong enough to steal business from him. If someone tried to steal his business, he would make Anthony, Johnson, and the bishop talk to them about the problem of keeping markets healthy. But Lu Shu agreed to attend the discussion session in the afternoon. He would be punctual. He returned to where Lu Xiaoyu was sitting. Lu Xiaoyu glanced at him. What is worth discussing with them? Lu Shu cheerily said, I have to integrate with them before I can sell my soap. After all, we are not familiar with the people here. We need to break in from somewhere. Furthermore, I realized that people around them like to listen when they discuss. They will be our living advertisements of the future. Today, we will start to sell soap. Suddenly, Lu Shu looked at his bowl of noodles. Where is the beef? Is there no beef in beef noodles? Waiter. Come here. The waiter walked over with a white cloth in his hands. What's wrong? Is your chef called Beef? Lu Shu remained calm as he asked. No, the waiter was shocked. Our chef is not called Beef. What's wrong? Where is the beef in my beef noodles? Lu Shu was unhappy. The waiter was dumbfounded. The beef was eaten by the lady beside you. Lu Shu was speechless. From Lu Shu's Distress, plus 199. Lu Shu looked at Lu Xiaoyu. He had guessed the beginning, but he had not guessed the end. At that moment, a few soldiers from the Weiwu army walked in. They clumsily wore their armor on their bodies, and their helmets were held loosely in their hands. They seemed like army riffs. Lu Shu silently observed them. He wanted to see how the Weiwu army behaved in daily life. When the 4 soldiers came in, they shouted arrogantly, 3 kilograms of beef, 2 liters of alcohol, and 4 servings of cold dishes. Hurry up. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu sat at the corner and did not move. When the soldiers finished eating and were about to pay, one of them suddenly put their helmet on the table. Here. Take his helmet as payment. Brothers, let's go. The waiter looked at the helmet on the table and put on a long face. Lu Shu was dumbstruck. Could this be called the army? They did not even want their helmet. Lu Shu secretly pulled the waiter to the side. Is this helmet worth money? Can this helmet settle the bill? What bill can they settle? The waiter did not know whether to laugh or to cry. I will send someone to return the helmet to the Weiwu army in the afternoon. This is classified army materials. We might die. Everything went according to routine. Lu Shu sighed with emotion. But this kind of army was quite suitable for him. He did not want to fight wars to collect achievements. He just needed to be eligible for the sword hut. With this kind of army, he did not have to panic. Let's go. Lu Shu stood up. We still have things to do. The Weiwu army did not seem very wealthy. Zhang Weiyu had said that they did not have much provisions and funds for the troops. The Qingxai army was wealthy because Nanjing city was relatively prosperous and had fertile land. On the other hand, Yunnan city was not an important city. They had no special products either. Entrepreneurs did not like coming to Yunnan city. But, the poorer a place was, the more common the conflict to commit questionable acts. It was said that some disciples of the sword hut had taken up positions in the Weiwu army, but applied for transfer after less than 2 months. They could not bear such an army. Needless to say, Lu Shu discovered that everyone thought highly of the sword hut. Lu Shu wanted to see the sword hut even more now. He asked the waiter and learned that the Weiwu army recruited soldiers every 3 months. The next conscription would be in over a month. But no matter how decent they were, the Weiwu army was never fully filled. As Lu Shu left the shop, he even asked the waiter. Does the Weiwu army typically fight? Yes, why not? The waiter said with disdain. There are many bandits in the mountains. They fight every day. The waiter quickly glanced at Lu Shu. Lu Shu laughed. As expected, there was something fishy. There would definitely be bandits in a world like this. But where did the bandits come from? Most of them were former slaves who had lost their slave owners. The Weiwu army itself was formed by former slaves. It would not make sense if these had nothing to do with one another. This was a vicious cycle. This was not an important city, and there were bandits in the mountains. If merchants were willing to do business here, they would be crazy. The more people who came, the poorer they became. The poorer they were, the more evil they would become. Lu Shu held on to the waiter. Can I ask you one more question? Do merchants come here? The waiter was dumbfounded. Yes, but not many. Only 2 major trade caravans come here. They have 2 rank 2 slaves. Thus, the bandits do not dare to provoke them. Lu Shu sighed. There were merchants here, which meant that he would be able to sell his soap in other distant areas. As long as the humidity was controlled, it was very convenient to transport soap. He asked curiously, what time will the trade caravan come? They are in the east of the city. The waiter said, but be careful. The female slave owner has a strange temper. Lu Shu thanked the waiter and brought Lu Xiaoyu to the east of the city. Lu Xiaoyu looked at him curiously. Have you thought about what we are going to do? We will trick them, said Lu Shu, full of confidence. He had a mysterious smile on his face. This was his first time seriously carrying out a plan. Get out, get out. Did I allow you to come in? A strong slave tried to push Lu Shu out. Lu Shu was unhappy. I have a business I want to talk to you about. I can assure you that after you hear this, you will be amazed. Wait. Stop pushing me. I'm telling you, stop. Lu Xiaoyu laughed at the side until her eyes became crescent moons. On Earth, Lu Shu had become a synonym for omnipotent. As long as Lu Shu was around, it seemed as if nothing was impossible. It was quite interesting to see Lu Shu being humiliated in this world.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.